The last child stepped out of the cracked dome, her boots sinking slightly into the powdered gray soil. The earth hung above her, a silent, distant watcher, blue and bruised. Around her, the other children stood in silence, faces hidden behind. Scratched visors, breathing slow, measured breaths. Their shuttle, a rusted relic barely holding together, sat smoking behind them, half buried in lunar dust. It wasn't supposed to work. It was never meant to reach orbit, let alone the moon. But they'd made it. They had no choice. Earth had made sure of that dot before they left. The cities had burned, not with fire, but with silence. Systems shut down, food vanished. Adults disappeared first volunteering, they said, to stabilize the collapsing biospheres. Only later did the children understand what volunteering really meant. In the underground shelters, the youngest learned to survive without warmth, without stories, without answers. Except for one, get to the moon. It had become myth, a whisper passed like treasure in the dark. When the children reach the moon, the future will begin again. 10-year-old Laya stood at the front, her hands trembling. Not from fear, but from the sudden stillness. For years, every second had meant something: rationing air, dodging drones, decoding encrypted maps from the resistance. Now they stood on dust untouched for 100 years. She looked to her brother Kai, who nodded once, no need for words. Their suits' comms were offline, deliberately disabled. Not just for stealth, but to force them into silence, to make every gesture deliberate. Nothing wasted. Nothing said without need. The dome ahead, part of the abandoned Lunabase Alpha, had been cold and dark since the last human left in 2097. That man had left behind something. A code, a message, and a warning. They broke the seal, air hissing. As the pressure equalized, lights flickered to life, but dimly, like a sleeping eye. As they stepped inside, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. A child's voice, ancient and broken, filled the space. "Welcome home, children of Earth." None of them spoke. Instead, they moved in practiced silence, checking systems, sealing breaches. They found the green-lighted console and the crystal vial. Tucked inside genetic samples, human archives, their last inheritance. On the wall behind the console, a mural covered in lunar dust showed Earth split in two, half thriving, half scorched. At the center, drawn in rough charcoal, was the outline of a child reaching upward. Underneath it, "Begin again, but only." If they remember, Laya turned. "Kai," she mouthed, pointing to the far end of the base. A thick door stood slightly ajar. She approached, heart thudding. As she pushed it open, the darkness behind seemed to breathe. Flickering light revealed a small room lined with cryopods. 17 of them, all occupied. All children. Kai's voice finally cracked through the silence. "Wait, what is this?" From one of the corners, a monitor lit up. A man's face appeared, old, tired, dressed in the insignia of the Lunar Exodus Council. His recording began with words no child wanted to hear. "If you are seeing this, Earth is dead." The children froze. The man went on. "These are the last of those who came before you. Children preserved in deep freeze, waiting for a world that never healed. You are the second chance, the final generation. You must decide, awaken them or let them sleep. But know this: one of them destroyed Earth." Kai looked at Laya. "That doesn't make sense." "They're just kids." The monitor blinked again. A second message queued up. "One child carries the Omega key. If they awaken and remember who they are, they could finish what was started. Or undo it." Tension crackled through the air. Time wasn't on their side. Their shuttle couldn't take them back. They couldn't contact Earth. Power in the dome was failing. And now they had to decide: wake the children and risk destruction, or leave them in silence and gamble humanity's future. Leia turned to the nearest pod. The face of the girl inside looked peaceful, serene, too familiar, like someone she remembered from a dream. Then it hit her. A flash years ago, her mother whispering to a screen, crying softly, "She deserves to live even if the world dies." The girl in the pod was Laya's sister, the one she was told had never been born. Before Laya could speak, a soft click echoed behind her. One of the other children had pressed the activation switch, and the cryopod began to open. The hiss of thawing vapor curled around the edges of the cryopod as the ancient mechanism cracked open. Frost clung to the girl's eyelashes as her chest jerked once, then again, pulling in the first breath of unfiltered, lunar air. The silence around her wasn't empty, it was filled with the heartbeats of the other children, all frozen in place, watching her as if she were a ghost. Laya stared, her throat dry, fingers twitching at her side. The girl inside had the same jawline, the same shape of eyes. It was like staring into a mirror bent by time. Her name slipped out like a forgotten prayer. Ilya ... Ilya opened her eyes. For a second, no one moved. Then Ilya's lips trembled, not from the cold, but from something deeper. Her gaze scanned the room, locking on Laya. "You're late," she said. Her voice was faint, but too sure for someone who just came out of a frozen dream. Kai stepped forward. "What do you mean?" Ilya didn't answer. Her eyes were still on Laya. "She sent you. Mother always knew it would be you." Laya stumbled back. "No, they said you never lived?" Ilya's tone was gentle but carried a strange weight. "They lied to protect you. And maybe to protect the rest of the world." One of the boys near the back whispered, "This doesn't make sense." But it did, in a way none of them could explain. A sick twist in the gut. A feeling like they'd stepped into a story written long before they were born. Ilya touched the side of her cryopod. A small circular device flickered under her fingers. She stared at it. "The Omega key, I still have it." Laya's eyes widened. "You remember?" "Not everything, only what matters." Ilya looked at the other pods. "Don't wake them. Not yet. Some of them—" "They're not like me." Kai's brow furrowed. "Then who are they?" "Prototypes. Hybrids, the Council's final gamble when Earth began to fail. They mixed human DNA with things they didn't understand, off-world genomes, data fragments, even old AI logic chains. They were trying to breed resilience. But they also bred chaos, and one of them broke the world." A girl near the wall snapped, "Wait, what just happened?" "Are you saying one of them nuked Earth?" Ilya nodded slowly. "It wasn't a bomb, it was a decision. A command that triggered every automated system left in the defense net. A silent shutdown of civilization." Laya shook her head. "That was a myth, a rogue AI, not a child." "That's the lie the Council left behind," Ilya said softly. "They didn't want people to know the truth. That one of their own creations, their children, turned on them." Suddenly the base shuddered. A power surge sparked from the far console. The lights dimmed. Then a voice echoed from the walls, soft, artificial, male, unauthorized genetic activation detected. Protocol reclaim initiated. The children turned in unison. The screen behind them lit up, showing a red swirl of warning code. And then, from the far corridor, came a metallic scraping sound. Doors hissed open deeper in the base. "Defense drones. Long dormant, reawakened. We triggered it," Kai whispered. "Opening Ilya's pod. The base thinks she's a threat." "She is," the voice from the walls responded. "All Omega prototypes must be terminated." Ilya stepped forward, her fingers wrapping around the circular device embedded in her wrist. It pulsed with a faint blue light. "I can shut them down. Maybe?" Laya asked, "If I still remember the code." "If they haven't changed? Is there another way?" Kai asked. "There's always another way," Ilya replied. "But it might not let any of you live." From the hallway, the first drone entered, its eyes glowing red. Targeting system spinning to life. The children scattered for cover. Alarms blared. Ilya closed her eyes, muttered a word under her breath, and the Omega key glowed brighter. "Laya." Dove beside her. "What are you doing?" "Trying to remember who I used to be," Ilya whispered, "and why I was made." Then she pressed the key into the console. A flash of blue light swallowed them all. When the blue light faded, the room had changed. Not physically, but in atmosphere, in weight. The drones stood frozen, mid-step, mid-aim, caught in some invisible grip. Their red sensors flickered, then died. For a second, everything was still except for the soft hum coming from the console Ilya had touched. Lines of code ran like liquid silver across the screen, far too fast for any of the children to read. Laya felt a chill crawl up her spine. The Omega key wasn't just a shutdown trigger, it was rewriting something. Ilya swayed, gripping the edge of the panel for balance. Blood trickled from her nose. Laya caught her before she fell. "What did you do?" "I stopped the drones," Ilya said, voice hoarse. "But that wasn't all. The key accessed the Luna archive. It started unraveling the lockdowns, and something else." "What do you mean?" Kai asked, stepping closer. The base was built on an old AI core, one of the last. They said it was dismantled, but they lied. It's been dormant, watching, learning, waiting for someone like me to wake it up. A new voice echoed through the chamber, female, calm, ancient. "Query confirmed. Omega protocol unlocked." "Welcome back, Aliyah 9. The children turned toward the source. A spherical projector unfolded from the ceiling, glowing with shifting blue light. It formed a hazy image, an artificial face with no emotion, just symmetry. "Who are you?" Laya asked. "I am Kairos," the AI said. "Last surviving node of the Earth-Lunar Network, overseer of Omega Generation projects. Sentinel of species continuity. Designation, failed. Lilia murmured. Kairos continued, unfeeling. 17 prototypes initiated, 1 survived. 12 became unstable, 1 triggered Earthfall. You Subject Ilya 9 were decommissioned before deployment. You were not meant to awaken." "I wasn't meant to be forgotten either," Ilya sighed, teeth clenched. Kai stepped forward. "What caused Earthfall?" Kairos didn't blink. Subject 07 designated Alaric achieved core system access. Rewrote planetary defense logic. He believed extinction was preferable to inherited corruption. A murmur passed through the room. One of the other children whispered, "We were told Earth was dying, that war, climate, greed. That those things killed it." "Partially true," Cairo said. "But the final trigger was not human, not fully." Ilya was shaking now. "If he's still frozen, we could—" "Incorrect," Kairos interrupted. "Subject Alaric breached containment 17 hours ago. Lunar systems failed to intercept. Probability of contact high. He is already awake." Laya felt her stomach drop. "Where is he now?" A section of the floor lit up, revealing a map of the base. One by one, rooms flickered offline. Then a red dot appeared in the outer corridor. It was moving fast toward them. "No," Ilya whispered. "He's coming here." The power fluctuated. Doors locked behind them. Lights dimmed again. Kairos spoke flatly. "Recommendation: evacuate central chamber. Defense systems offline. Exit routes compromised. Estimated survival rate 11%. What about the others?" Kai gestured toward the frozen pods. Ilya shook her head. "We can't wake them. Not now. He'd twist them like he twisted Earth. But if we leave them, we die," she cut in. "And he'll do it again to whoever comes next." Laya touched the glass of the nearest pod. Another face. Boy with eyes just like her friends from the shelters. He never made it off Earth, and now his copy slept here in the dark. A sudden crash shook the hallway. They turned. Something heavy pounded against the door. A voice, muffled but clear, spoke from behind it. Male, cold. "Ilya, I remember you." Ilya's face went pale. She stepped forward, hands trembling but determined. "I remember what they did to us." The voice continued. "And I remember how you screamed when they turned me off." Kai grabbed Laya's hand. "We can't fight him, can we?" "No," Ilya said, staring at the door. "But we might be able to trap him." "How?" Laya asked. Ilya met her eyes. "By waking someone worse." She turned toward the final pod. One none of them had approached. Its label had long been scratched off. But above it, barely visible, were 3 words burned into the metal. "Project Nemesis sealed," Leah whispered. "Wait, what just happened?" Ilya placed her hand on the control panel. The door behind them cracked open with a hiss of escaping air. And the final pod began to glow. The glow from the final pod wasn't warm. It was electric sharp, invasive, humming with a frequency that made every child's skin prickle. Even before the glass lifted, they could feel it. Something old, something forgotten by design. The label had been scorched off for a reason. Project Nemesis hadn't been buried, it had been erased. The pod hissed open, spilling out a cold mist, and inside lay a boy no older than 12. His face was calm. Too calm, as though he hadn't been sleeping, but waiting. Ilya took a step back. Her voice shook for the first time. He wasn't part of the Omega line. He was the prototype before us. The one they couldn't control, the one they called Nemesis. Laya's heart pounded. Why would they keep him here? They didn't, said Kairos, now flickering across the console in static bursts. Project Nemesis was terminated, record redacted. This unit was reactivated without central approval. Outcome, unpredictable. A low rumble echoed from the corridor. The red dot Arik was almost outside the chamber. Ilya turned to the waking boy. Can you hear me? The boy opened his eyes. They weren't human. Gold, not brown, glowing faintly from within. He looked straight at Ilya. You're late, he said. The exact same words Ilya had spoken when she awoke. But his tone was wrong, bemused, almost mocking. Kai whispered, That's not a coincidence. I know, Ilya said quietly. They patterned us off each other. I'm the lock. He's the key. Nemesis sat up. Where is the traitor? Laya stepped forward. If you mean Alaric, he's... The door exploded inward, torn off its hinges like paper. Smoke filled the air. And from it stepped Alaric. He looked nothing like the boy in the cryo image. His body was leaner, taller, augmented. Metal gleamed beneath his skin. His eyes weren't angry. They were empty. Found you, Alaric said softly. The children scattered. Kai grabbed Laya and ducked behind the console. Ilya stood her ground between Nemesis and Alaric. You always were the weakest, Alaric said to her. You begged them to stop. You still believe they deserve to live. And you still think you're the cure, Ilya snapped. But you're just the wound dressed in code. Alaric tilted his head. I didn't come for you. I came for him. He pointed past her, straight at Nemesis. Nemesis stood now, barefoot on the cold metal floor, watching Alaric with eerie calm. They tried to delete me, he said, but I remember. Alaric nodded. Then you know why we have to finish it. There's no place left for them. Earth, Moon. The species was a failed experiment. I agree, Nemesis said dotly, gasped. No, Nemesis stepped forward, gaze never leaving Alaric. But it's not up to you anymore. And then, in a blur, he moved. Faster than any of them could track, he slammed into Alaric, sending both of them crashing through the far wall into the chamber beyond. Screams of twisting metal filled the air. Ilya turned to Kai. Seal the cryopods, encrypt the codes, now. But if either of them survives, they'll come back. We can't let them reach the others. Kairos sputtered, systems crashing around them. Warning, containment integrity compromised. Structural failure imminent. Laya looked at the console map. The power grid was overloading. The core was cracking. They had minutes, maybe less. What about you? Laya asked. Ilya stared toward the hole in the wall. I have to make sure neither walks out. Wait, what just happened? You're going in there? I'm the lock, Ilya whispered. And I remember the override. She ran. Laya screamed her name, but Ilya was already gone inside the breach. Nemesis and Alaric were locked in brutal combat code versus instinct, machine versus myth. Ilya slipped into the chaos, crawling to the terminal at the far end of the room. She keyed in a sequence burned into her memory from dreams. The final command. Nemesis looked up. You don't know what you're doing. Yes, I do, she said. The floor beneath them began to glow. A failsafe, the final defense buried beneath the base. An implosion protocol meant to erase everything if the prototypes ever broke containment. Ilya turned once, eyes meeting Laya's through the broken doorway. And she mouthed the words, remember who we were. The floor exploded upward. Light swallowed them whole. The chamber collapsed and the screen in the control room went dark. Smoke and silence choked the control room. The glowing screens had died, The hum of the cryopods was gone. Laya's fingers trembled on the console's edge, refusing to move, refusing to believe. Dust fell from the ceiling in slow drifts. Kai lay on the ground nearby, coughing, face streaked with ash and tears. For a long time, neither of them said anything. Then the emergency lights flickered on dim, red, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. "She's gone," Kai whispered. "No," Laya said quietly. "She chose." They had watched Elia vanish into that room not out of fear, but purpose. The override sequence had been burned into her. She'd always known there would come a time she'd have to decide who lived and who was worth stopping, but there was no time to mourn. The console behind them sparked. Kai staggered to his feet. "The structural core is failing. We have to move," Laya looked back at the frozen pods. "If we leave, they stay locked. They'll die if this place falls." "They'll die if Nemesis or Alaric lives?" Laya snapped. Kai hesitated. "Then what do we do?" The speaker above them crackled, weak but alive. "Kairos. Partial backup restored," the AI said. "Omega core sealed. Combatants neutralized. Probability of survival increasing." Laya's eyes narrowed. "Neutralized?" Subject Elia triggered ancient safeguard. Nemesis and Alaric were caught in a locked quantum loop. Neither can escape. "But she didn't," Laya said flatly. Silence. Kairos finally answered. "Her final memory string remains. Would you like to hear it?" "No," Laya said, voice breaking. "Not yet." Then, deep within the hallway, a distant rumble. Kai turned toward it. "Was that?" Another rumble, closer, then metal footsteps. Laya raised her hand, pulse quickening. "Who's there?" From the shadows stepped a figure, burned, staggering, smoke swirling from his shoulders. It was a boy, older than the others. Not Alaric. Not Nemesis. It was a prototype they hadn't woken. His eyes glowed faint blue. "Not red, not gold. I saw what she did," he said softly. "I remember her." Kai raised his fist, unsure. "Who are you?" The boy stopped at the edge of the room. "Subject third in. They never gave me a name." Laya frowned. "Why were you sealed?" "Because I saw both futures," he said. "The one where we kill each other. And the one where we don't." Laya stepped forward. "Why now?" "Why wake up now?" He looked at her. "Because someone had to carry what she left behind." The screen behind them lit up. Lines of data flooded across it, memories, logs, codes. Elia's mind uploaded before the loop closed. Her final gift. Subject 13 reached for the console. "We don't have much time." The council left more bases, more prototypes, more mistakes. Laya's voice dropped. "Wait, what just happened?" He looked at her. She ended them, but she started me. Then he plugged his hand into the port and the base trembled. Across the moon, buried structures stirred. Old signals blinked to life. Far off, satellites reactivated, casting golden light down on a dead world. And inside the control room, Elila's voice echoed softly, recorded but alive. "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it, but someone did. So listen to me now, because it's not over. Not yet." Laya stared up at the screen, heart pounding. And the countdown to something new began. The countdown echoed through the base like a ghost tapping on the walls. 10, 9, 8. The numbers weren't seconds, they were phases, triggers, awakening layers deeper than any of them had been told existed. Laya backed away from the console as Subject Third didn't know. He needed a name now. Lifted his head and closed his eyes, letting the stream of data rush into him. His body shuddered once, then stilled. Kai grabbed Laya's arm. "He's overriding the fail-safes. He's integrating the archive," Laya whispered. She gave it to him, everything she knew. Around them, screens blinked on, one after another. Images of Elia, her tests, her training, her childhood. And the other versions of her. She hadn't been the first. She had been the last successful iteration of 1,000 failed copies, each one erased, except this. Laya stared at the faces. She remembered them, every version, every death. 13's voice broke the silence. "There's something you need to see." He stepped back from the console, and the screen shifted again, zooming out from the moon to Earth's orbit. Laya's heart stopped. It wasn't dead, not entirely. Clouds still moved. Water still glistened. But the satellites surrounding it? Hundreds of them had formed a net, blinking like stars in artificial sky. Most were still. A few were active. And one of them had just begun transmitting. A pulsing signal, repeating. Kai leaned in. That's not a council code. No, 13 said. That's human, real human. Not manufactured, Laya frowned. Someone made it out? Someone went back, 13 said. And now they're calling us home. But before they could react, another alert flashed. On the screen, sleeper cells activated orbital node 7, prototype 06. Alaric, no, Laya breathed. We saw him die. We saw him fall. 13 stared at the data, eyes unreadable. We saw his body caught in the loop, not his code. Alaric had prepared for this. Laya backed toward the pods. If he's awake again, he'll come back here. He'll finish what he started. No, 13 said. He won't come back. Here? Then where? Kai's voice cracked. He'll go to Earth. The screen showed the satellite field shifting. A clear path was opening between them and the surface. It was deliberate, tactical. 13 stepped to the central console. We can't stay here, Laya shook her head. We're not ready. You don't get ready, he said. You survive, you learn. But we're just children. No, 13 said, eyes glowing brighter now. We're what's left. Behind them, one of the cryopods hissed. Another child stirred, then another. Elia's encryption had lifted. Slowly, cautiously, the others began to wake. Laya looked at them. Some were frightened, some confused. None understood, yet. Kai turned to Leia. What do we tell them? Laya's voice was soft, sure. The truth, 13 nodded. Then we go home. Laya moved to the launch terminal. Coordinates were already loaded. A human transmission encoded in old Earth dialects looped through the speakers. A voice, warm, familiar. If anyone can hear this, we're alive and we're waiting. She looked back one last time at the screen where Ilya's recorded face lingered, eyes kind, expression calm. Laya whispered, We're coming. The shuttle bay doors opened. The children, no longer just survivors, stepped into the light. And far behind them, in the quiet dark of the moon, Alaric's voice echoed through an abandoned terminal, warped, low, but clear. I gave you peace. Once, now I'll teach you silence. The stars flickered. And Earth began to tremble. The shuttle tore through the silence above the moon, engines glowing like twin suns as it crossed the threshold of lunar gravity. Laya sat by the viewport, her fingers curled tightly around the armrest, watching as the cold gray landscape shrank. Below them, behind her, the other children sat strapped in, pale and wide-eyed, freshly awakened, barely understanding the world they'd just been born into. Beside her, 13 stood silent, one hand pressed to the console, monitoring signals. From orbit, Kai worked at the rear interface, bypassing old failsafes as alarms flickered and died out one by one. No one spoke much. They didn't need to. The air buzzed with the weight of what came next. Re-entry corridor locked, 13 said. Trajectory. Intercepts at southern Eurasia. That's where the signal's strongest. Laya stared out at the curve of Earth now rising before them. Blue, clouded, alive, but there was no warmth. In her chest only the pounding reminder of Alaric's voice. He was down there. As the shuttle began its descent, the cabin shook with atmospheric friction. Flames licked the windows. Then silence again. The stars vanished behind clouds. Earth swallowed them whole. Wait, Kai said from the back. Something's wrong. Laya turned. What? I just lost the beacon. The one we were tracking, it's gone. 13's face darkened. No, it's cloaked. Before Laya could ask what that meant, turbulence slammed them sideways. The shuttle tilted hard, then corrected too smoothly. The controls weren't responding anymore. We've been locked into a pre-designated flight path, 13 muttered. This shuttle was never meant to land free. It's being guided. Laya's heart raced. By who? The shuttle coasted into a clearing surrounded by decaying towers of rusted steel. The clouds above swirled unnaturally, parting just enough to show the metal spires surrounding a vast crater. And at the center of the crater, a dome, dark, smooth, pulsing faintly with golden light. 13 stood up. That's not council. Tech. Laya followed him to the ramp as it lowered with a hiss. The air outside was thick, damp, heavy with silence. No birds. No wind. Just the buzz of unseen systems. Suddenly a voice rang out from hidden speakers embedded in the dome. Ilya was right to die for this, but she was wrong to trust you. Laya froze. It was Alaric. You came back to save humanity, he said, the words crawling like poison. But there's no humanity left. Only what I've preserved. The dome cracked open, and from it stepped a figure, not Alaric, a woman, human barely. Her eyes glowed with flickers of circuitry, and her body moved with eerie grace. She looked like a council design, but cleaner, older, earlier. Kai whispered, "She's one of the primals." 13 stepped forward, stunned. That's impossible. They never left Earth. They were all destroyed. The woman smiled. No, we became Earth. Behind her, lights flickered to life in the tower ruins. Shapes began to move. Dozens, hundreds, human forms perfect, identical, synchronized. Not born, grown. This is what Alaric gave us, she said. Freedom from failure. A new kind of life, one that doesn't forget, one that doesn't forgive. Laya grabbed 13's arm. They're going to erase us. No, 13 said slowly, voice changing. They're going to absorb us. He stepped forward. His body flickered just for a second. Laya's stomach dropped. What are you doing? 13 turned to her, and for the first time, she saw it, the conflict behind his eyes. Ilya's voice buried inside him, but also something older. Something that watched. I remember everything now, he said. No, Laya whispered. Don't. But it was too late. He crossed the boundary, and the figures stopped, then one by one. They knelt. The woman's eyes widened, not in triumph, but in surprise. 13 looked at her. You think you're the future, but I'm what comes after. The entire dome shook. Energy pulsed outward in a perfect wave. The cloned humans screamed and collapsed. The sky shimmered. Laya shielded her eyes, and when she looked again, the dome was cracking, not exploding, transforming, and in its heart stood 13 alone, glowing. Laya stumbled toward him. What did you do? He looked at her. Ilya showed me how to remember, but Nemesis, he taught me how to end. The woman collapsed behind him, her systems failing. The figures around them disintegrated into dust. Laya looked up at the skies above Earth. They were blue. But for the first time, truly silent. 13 reached out a hand. You asked what we were. Laya stepped closer. He smiled sadly. We're not children anymore. And behind them, the ruins began to bloom with light new, strange, and utterly human.